Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar, Back to School Support and Resources for Pre-K. My name is Sarah Shaja, and I'm a marketing manager based at McGraw Hill, based in Dubai. Before we go on any further, I just want to check if the audio connection is okay and you can hear my voice. On the right side on your screen, there's a hand icon on the right side. Excellent, Vala. Thank you. You know the drill by now. A couple of attendees have already raised their hands, which means you're fine. My colleague Afsana has also dropped a note in the chat how you can connect yourself to the audio. Thank you for letting me know that's fine. Before we go ahead any further, I'll just give you a brief overview of this session. This is a pre-K webinar, so we will go over the programs for pre-K, math, science, and English. If you're using our McGraw Hill programs for pre-K, which is My Math, Inspire Science Early Learners, and World of Wonders in your class, you will be learning about resources and how you can utilize these in your classroom. Me and my colleague Afsana will be moderating the session for today. So we're in the background to take over question answers that you can have for our trainer or anything that you want to talk to us about. Feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A box and we can address them later, or Beth can ask us in between that if we need to answer those questions. A bit of a background on our trainer. We have Beth Miner as our trainer today. Thank you, Beth, for joining us.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you so much. Beth is a senior curriculum specialist at McGraw Hill and has an experience of 35 years in education. She has been a classroom teacher, a curriculum coordinator, K-12 curriculum chairman, and has held several leadership positions across her career. Beth's expertise are elementary pedagogy, curriculum and instruction, and technology initiatives. She's done numerous trainings internationally and nationally, so we're very pleased to have Beth join us today. Thank you. I am now going to hand over to Beth, who can begin the presentation. If you have any questions for us or during the session, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. Over to you, Beth.
Thank you so much. And I hope you all can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect. Thank you. And teachers, educators, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you have busy days right now, and giving up this time is truly something I hope that you will appreciate, and that what you hear is very worthwhile for you. As Shri said, we have quite a bit to cover in a limited amount of time. So I chose to go with the World of Wonders first, so that we could start with that component that has just so many things to cover. And hopefully what you'll also see as we go through this are those strong connections to the mathematics and science as well. So you can begin to think, as we spend this time together, about those integration opportunities, about the chances to gently nudge in the mathematics and the science, perhaps as you're working through your Wonders materials. And it does give you, I think, a great opportunity to do that. One of the things I want to start out with is just how World of Wonders is set up, what the organization is, because one of the things I think is most beneficial as someone who taught early childhood for a long time is the flexibility. And we all need that with these young ones, don't we? That opportunity to be somewhat flexible in how we not only present the material to them, but just in the manipulation of our time throughout the day. So one of the things I want to point out first is that you have approximately 10 units, and I say approximately because there is, again, that flexibility piece. Each one of the units that you see on the screen is about 4 weeks long, so it's very organized, and I think part of what is integrated into the 4 weeks of every single unit is that opportunity to use your own creativity, to put in things that are favorites for you, but the organization of it through both the print and the digital resources allows for that purposeful play that is such a part of the early learner classroom. And also, as we go through this, I want you to think ABC. And as I go through, I'll tell you what that means, but ABC is going to make this so easy for you as well. So when we think about these units, Notice that units 1 through 9 are labeled. But what I really want you to think about are the themes that are associated with units 1 through 8. So if you think 4 weeks per unit, 1 through 8, that's 32 weeks right there. And then unit 9 is about 2 weeks long, and it's called Ready for K. And it's right there at the end of the school year, getting them ready to make that transition from the pre-K classroom over into the kindergarten classroom. So now you're up to 34 weeks. And then notice the last one is called Teacher's Choice. There's that flexibility again with mini units. And these are favorite themes. And again, we're not asking you to think these up or make these up or search the internet. We'll provide you with them, but it also allows you the opportunity to integrate some things that maybe you've been wanting to do throughout the course of the whole year. So 8 very consistent units right across the board, 32 weeks of instruction. Unit 9, the Getting Ready for K, another 2, and then the mini units that will allow you to integrate some of those things that are favorite to you. Your 8 units. Notice the title of each. Again, these are things that are favorites for us as early childhood teachers. Who are we? Exploration gives you a chance, this very first unit, to really get to know your students well. The Making Friends. You're going to see a very strong piece of World of Wonders is the social and emotional learning. And you'll see that integrated in the science as well, where we're really trying to tap into that social piece of being an early learner. Families, food, the neighborhood, transportation, animals, and nature. Very common themes with young children, but I'm sure that you're already looking at these and thinking of all the things that you like to do when you are using these themes in your classroom. And then, of course, there's your Unit 9, Ready for K, about 2 weeks long, and your favorites. So start thinking about each of those units and perhaps things that you already would like to integrate into those. So when you think about that much material, and I was throwing out weeks, 32 weeks, 2 weeks, 34 weeks, and you're already thinking, oh my goodness, time crunch. And we get like that because we know what we want to cover. We know how much time we have to do it. So I want you to also think about how you can personalize your instruction, but also what we've done here at McGraw Hill and World of Wonders to ensure that we're giving you the proper class management and planning tools as well. Notice here, I just randomly put up Unit 4, and here's your planner. Remember I said each one was about 4 weeks long, so you see each of the components of a unit. They're open with the social and emotional development. This is, where we might gather together on the carpet and get, start our day together. If you're doing teaching remotely this year, think about that, perhaps in a Zoom meeting or Canvas. How can you open the social and emotional piece when the students aren't really seated next to each other? And here come your ABCs. Remember, I told you to think about ABC. A, alphabet time. B, book time. And now C is cross-curricular. Your studies in science, math, music, and movement. So these 3 components create your C of the ABCs, the cross-curricular piece, and that's all important integration of these into our ELA block. And notice at the bottom, you see differentiated instruction. They're going to come in, as you well know, as experienced educators in so many different places. Some of your students may come in and have that ability to be seated and listen intently. There'll be the others, as we well know, rolling around, getting up, not understanding about asking permission to leave the rooms or the restroom or any of those kinds of things that come as a part of the learning experience in an early classroom. So I want you to think about how you can differentiate that instruction. And I'll show you components that we've had built in for you. And then as you move through each of the weeks, I'm just going to show you the closing weeks of this clear instructional path. Notice at the top, Mr. Rogers. If you're familiar with him, and of course we just had that movie that came out not too long ago with Tom Hanks. This gentleman was on television for years. Your students may not be familiar with him. and so he maybe needs to be introduced. But we integrate Mr. Rogers and his strong emphasis on learning to be kind and learning to be a good sharer and how to be a friend to others. And notice in this week 4, it's proud to be growing, I can do it. You'll have a flip chart with explicit instructions on how to integrate this social and emotional part of the learning experience. And then, of course, the alphabet time, notice the emphasis on not just alphabet recognition, but phonological awareness, the increased emphasis you'll have as you go through the unit on print, words. You'll often see those in your plans as simply HF. Little readers, there are almost 40 of those, and then your theme books. And all of these are part of your World of Wonders library. You have choices in book time as a part of the ABC in the B part of books, the teacher choice. And then, of course, mixing and growing, your social studies, math, science comes in as the C part of your ABC. You can engage these students with your favorite themes too. And I mentioned that Unit 10. But there is an opportunity as you progress through the year not to wait until Unit 10 to pull in some of these mini units. You see, meet Eric Carl, and you may be familiar with him in some of his books. Very Hungry Caterpillar is one. You have templates embedded in your teacher resources so that you can create your own mini unit. The literacy, the math, all of this in small group and whole group instruction. And of course, you have the read aloud. All of this integrated as a part of the 4 weeks that are a part of your unit, or as you approach the end of the year, those 2-week mini units as well. I want to emphasize, too, the emphasis on your digital, which we'll look at in just a minute. Digitally, you have your flip books, you have some of the songs and videos, those all of your readings are in ebook well. And your students will have a login into Word, encourage you, just the parents, so they can go on, they can find digital resources that continue to support learn from home. And of course, in the with the pandemic, we need to be teaching remotely. It could be right here at the beginning of school, or it could be happen later on in the year. No, just know that these digital resources, all of your alphabet cards, games, your big books, flip charts, all of these wonderful tools that are a part of your instruction and the tools that you need for instruction are integrated into your digital and the digital that students can access as well. So I want to be sure that you're aware of that. One of the strongest components that you have are the books and stories that you share with your students. And I've shown many of these right here on the screen. Of course, couldn't show them all. But you have approximately 42 trade books, little readers, pattern books, big books that you can share in whole group. They're big enough for that. The nursery rhymes and songs, some of my favorites, just because of the alliteration, the nuanced language, the read aloud anthologies, and retelling cards. When you look at all of these components, it is a bit overwhelming at first, but just stop and think. You're not going to pull these all out at once. You're only going to use 1 or 2 in each of your weeks. So these are not just going to lay on the shelf, but they're there and they're ready to pull out to use in whole group, in small group, and as students become ready for them. And of course, each student is going to move at his or her rate of understanding of what's happening as they learn the reading process. So don't become overwhelmed by the number of things that you have. Think about how they work in that wonderful instructional plan that we just saw across the 4 weeks of every unit. There are 2 types of student readers that you're going to use. You have pattern theme books, and I put some bullets here just to give you some background, some opportunity to understand about how they are integrated into what you're doing, both whole group and small group. You're only going to use 1 pattern each unit, and you know that a unit lasts about 4 weeks. They're theme-based. Notice this one here, my yummy food. You know, everybody loves food. The pattern is based on high-frequency words. So the high-frequency words will become more visible as you get deeper, of course, into each of your units. All children will be able to read these at one point, and these provide very early reading experience. In your transitional K readers, again, one each week, you're going to fold in decodable words as children begin to understand not just letter recognition, but letter sound. And the children will begin to sound out 2- and 3-letter words. So as you can see, it's very methodical, step by step. And of course, your teacher's guide, your teacher's edition is going to show you exactly which one to pull in at what time, how to begin these as read aloud, and transition them into student readers. Additional resources that you're going to use, of course, are going to be clearly laid out in every single lesson prep. So with social and emotional read alouds, with little books for early reading, you have reproducible and activity pages for free play and purposeful play. You have flip charts that have key content areas. And if you like to work online, and if you have the digital tools in your classroom, such as an interactive whiteboard, you can connect to all of this through ConnectEd. You'll also find their professional development materials in ConnectEd, routines, for instance, that help you set up this kind of classroom, manipulatives, all of the materials that you need to support instruction, including all of your songs, dance, and movement. And then if you look on the right, connecting to kindergarten. And you know, as you approach that Unit 9, after you've had your 32 weeks of Units 1 through 8, you're also going to see opportunities to begin to develop familiarity with background knowledge and classroom routines that will be important for strong transition from pre-K to K. And you know your K colleagues will love that as you begin to make this movement from the early childhood classroom into a more, routine K development kind of opportunity for these young learners as well. So you're going to have student consumables. My word book is one. And of course, every unit is going to build content knowledge. Notice that every unit is going to have 4 weeks, and each of those weeks is going to have 2 focus questions. And these are questions where we'll help the students focus their learning. Notice in week 1, where does food come from? And what are healthy food choices? So we're going to integrate these wonderful, wonderful questions into our teaching. So we can begin to look at, am I eating in a healthy way? And of course, we don't want to guilt, children who have the occasional Happy Meal at a fast food place. That's not the intent at all. But it's helping them understand that when it does come to food choice, are we making good food choices? And that all-important opportunity of connecting learning to the world around us. So where does this food come from that we eat every day? Does it come from the land? Do we import our food? I mean, we're not talking about using words like import, but begin to understand that not all food choices that we have are necessarily choices that we could get easily. And it really helps us integrate things like seasons. It helps us understand why some foods are easier to acquire at specific times of the year. And as you know, with our young learners, this changing of the seasons and the understanding of time passing is such a difficult concept. To be able to connect this to not just time passing, but the foods that we eat, the things that we play, the clothes that we wear, it's all softly integrated into your instruction. Okay? I mentioned ABC, so it is as simple as ABC. In developing these young learners, it's all very appropriate. You're going to start your day, every single day, with a daily morning message. And it really focuses around this social and emotional growth. Then we'll begin to transition into activities. You'll have talk. You'll have that all-important opportunity for sharing and use your social and emotional flip chart. Then transitioning into your A, alphabet time, your B, the book time, and then ultimately making that transition into your cross-curricular. So notice that Mr. Rogers right there, and he'll often introduce your morning message. And I know you're sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I have to remember all this. No. Remember that as you progress through your teacher's guide, your teacher's edition, it's all laid out very, very explicitly in how to get the message in front of the students and then how to do that all-important transition as well. And then, of course, as we look at the alphabet time, what will I introduce first? And I want you to notice on the screen right now, right under the block, it says teacher table support. So think about that, in your room configuration. Do you have a teacher table where you can pull those small groups over? And then the clear instructional pathway for all learners. You'll notice in your teacher's edition an emphasis on 4-year-old learners and 3-year-old learners. We know that very often some of our children aren't quite ready for that strong approach into the alphabet time, and you may need to transition backwards a little bit and offer them a little bit more growth opportunity. So you'll see that extra support for our younger learners built in. Weekly center opportunities. Again, how you set up your classroom, completely up to you. But I know the emphasis you like to place on these small center activities, both for free play and for guided play, where students are in a center to perform a specific task. And it's not simply an opportunity to interact with a material. This purposeful play has prompts that you're going to want to use in speaking and built-in opportunity for names and pre-writing skills and all of those things that will guide our students towards a meaningful K experience as well. And then, of course, as you move into book time, you're going to have your daily circle, very in-depth opportunity to take it from circle time over to your teacher table. Multiple books, and you saw the vastness of the library that you have, an opportunity for you to make a choice in what book to use. Rich language development and cultural literacy, really providing students with the opportunity for nursery rhymes and folk tales to really understand some of the kinds of literature that they can be exposed to over time. And here comes your C, A alphabet, B books, C, that content curriculum where you're able to do more theme-based things. You're going to have an opportunity to integrate social studies and science. And as we look at science next, the science for early learners, you'll see that these are integrated so that you can pull from your science activities to integrate into World of Wonders. The mathematics, although you have perhaps My Math as your choice, which again we'll look at last, you also have math integrated, which includes an array of math games, the World of Wonders, and of course the all-important music and movement. And these are weekly activities that give you a chance to integrate music and movement and physical development, both fine motor and gross motor. So additional music instructions are built in, often through nursery rhymes, and that all-important movement, getting them up and getting some of that energy out, because this is, for many of them, so hard, and it's a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to use very correlated movement and music activities that move into the theme of the unit that you're teaching. So there are your ABCs, every single week, every single unit, so consistent. So as you look at your teacher's edition, you'll also see that we're providing different pathways for you. On the left, this is a half-day instruction, but it's spaced out across a whole day of school. On the right, you notice a true half-day environment where you may only have your students, in this case, from 8 to 12. So what we're trying to do is help you get all of these activities in a meaningful way that also gives you a chance to breathe, but also to be sure that the whole group, the small group, the teacher table, the purposeful play, all of this is happening in a way that works for you in the amount of time that you have with your students. I also want you to take a chance when you can to look up the page in your teacher's edition labeled Setting Up Your Classroom. I know how important it is for you to feel like that you can put your hands on anything that you need. So this is just a list of what you might want to have ready right away so that you can put your hands on it and really get that classroom up and rolling immediately. It goes from having a jobs board to what you might need for center play, your teacher table, your circle time area, and all of those things. So I'm also going to challenge you now to think about if remote teaching is what you're going to start the year with, or if it happens later on in the year, how you can continue with this setup while your students aren't physically in the room. And I know that's going to be a challenge. But, even calling them, and I found that was something that I really needed to work on as an early learner, as an early, childhood teacher, is to always call it teacher table or to always call it circle time, so that as we move through the year, these words were integrated into how they knew how to behave or manage themselves in that environment. When we come to the carpet, this is how we sit. This is the area of the room that we'll be in. When we come to teacher table, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to act when we're here. So again, it's all a part of establishing those routines that I know you want in your schedule. I want you to notice the amount of time. Now, these are provided by our authors at World of Wonders, suggesting, not as you look at these, how this transition can happen throughout the course of either a half day of math across a whole day in the classroom, or about how much time you could spend if you have to dismiss them halfway through the day. So these are very, very thoughtful recommendations. But again, this is your room. And if you find that you really need to change this, that is certainly your prerogative. I think the key here to these suggestions is we know that with our young learners, movement can be difficult. Moving from station to station needs to be a learned activity. And if we don't give them enough time, and if they do feel rushed, then again, are we going to meet the goals that we set for this activity? So just trying to offer you some suggestions there. Take them for what they are and know that it's your room, put your stamp on it. And finally, assessment. Throughout the course of everything you've been doing, whether it's circle time, ABC, if it's teacher table, you're given the opportunity to do authentic assessment. This includes performance assessment through observation. This includes gathering work samples from your students. And this also includes what we call developmental red flags. And these are observation lists of behaviors and physical growth that help us identify when students might need additional instruction, they might need a formal evaluation, or they may need extra time at the teacher table. So look for these in the big red check mark that you see there. You're also going to find that you have an assessment flip book. And this is to periodically benchmark student growth in language, in math, in motor skills. And these are wordless books that are also available to access student growth in language and the retelling of stories in sequence, and also relating new information that they've learned. So we know that the assessment is a huge part of how you also communicate with parents. So I just want you to be mindful of these assessment check marks that you will see as you progress through your 4 weeks of each of the themes in your unit. Look for those. We know they're important. This lets me transition to communicating with parents. I know how much you want to, and I know how important it is for your parents to hear about the growth that the students are having as they move through their pre-K experience. So know that you have theme-related books for your parents that you can send home. And this is where they are offered suggestions on how to interact with their preschool child through meaningful activities at home. The opportunity, for instance, to set a table. And where does the fork belong? Where does the spoon belong? Where does the knife belong? And while this seems like a very, common activity, it really does involve a lot of thought. It involves a lot of patterning and sequencing and all of those things that offer the opportunity for parents to be really integrated into this early learner experience. They have take-home games and activities built into the program for you to be able to send to them, field trips, community visitors. Again, in this year of the COVID virus, I don't know that you'll be allowed to have people in your classroom, but each of the units will offer you suggestions on who you might invite in and how they can be integrated into the theme. These are the kinds of experiences that if you could possibly have them, I know that you probably already do much of this, but what we want to do is help you make that come alive and make it part of your purposeful instruction with the early learner. Notice the ideas for busy families, and of course these come in multiple languages. 9 languages are available in homeschool letters online. If you need more than English, please know that you have it. In addition to all this wonderful stuff, all these components that you have, your ABC, your visitors, homeschool connection, in every single unit, there's also a project. Now, of course, you don't have to do these, but this is one more way to extend learning with a hands-on interactive project. Notice here in Unit 1, your theme about food. This is about a family feast. So very often, parents do celebrate, whether it's a birthday dinner or if it centers around a cultural holiday. It's an opportunity for students, these young learners, to get involved in the planning of that and how much food needs to be bought, what kinds of food will we buy, these kinds of things. So these are ideas that you can use to not just thematically work in your room, and also it's an opportunity for students to stand and share out and articulate and use good, strong language. So think about that. And just want to be mindful that all of this is available online. Guiding your students and your parents online will give them a chance to access all of these wonderful things that I've just been talking about, to integrate them into the early learning experiences. In the ABC, with the A alphabet, B books, in the C, the cross-curricular, we're going to give you all of these opportunities to make your centers. Now, again, I want you to be creative. I want you to think about how flexible you can be. And if you have centers that you love, please use them, because we're just offering you suggestions on how this integration comes alive. Notice over here with science and discovery, living or non-living. This is a sort. And this integrates beautifully into science with its 5E approach, in engage, explore, explain. So all of this is very well thought out and articulated to you. So as you look at these and think about setting up your centers in your room or pushing these centers out remotely, how you can make these become an interactive, hands-on experience for your students as they build knowledge through exploration and very purposeful play. And again, there's your personal. Also, to point in this is an informal for you. And of course, I want to talk. As you move through your 5 days of instruction in 4 weeks, you'll always have the day 1 for the Mr. Rogers social and emotional approach. And then I also want you to notice we always are building in transition. You know how important it is to have strong digital time. And you'll notice a red box expectations for children with special needs. Now, you're an experienced educator, and have any real special needs students in my room, and that may be the case. But you do have students come in with developmental lags, or you have students who come in who may have some language delays. Think about how you can use these suggestions as part of instruction. And again, how those work. You have big books that you want to use in your circle time, and then of course you have flip charts. I tried to put some suggestions here in bullets. This illustrates different ways you can use this in the classroom, different ways to promote discussion, and this is a wonderful classroom management tool when you think about helping students make good suggestions around the issues of kindness and sharing as well, and what it is to help one another. These are the kinds of things that as you progress in the program, you're going to figure out how you want to use these. What we've also done for you, though, is we've provided checklists so that you can actually make specific observations of your students and make sure that they are growing, not just through their alphabet, through their book use, through their connections to other content areas, but they're growing emotionally as well. So we provided those forms for you and wanted you to be sure that you have the opportunity to use those. You have very diverse opportunities with these pattern books. Some of them are fiction, some are nonfiction. You will see high frequency words as you use them. Remember, you only use one of these per unit. So you'll come back to them over and over and over. And you'll read them frequently throughout the unit. So don't be surprised if you hear the students begin to mouth the words along with you because they've heard them so frequently. They begin to understand the book and remember some of the sentences that you're going to read, and they really love them. These are available ebooks as well, so they can be at home, and they can be used on interactive boards or simply project in your classroom. And, of course, you have the little readers, and these are typically for your more advanced learners. There's one a week, and this is an opportunity for 2- and 3-letter sounds to come out. And you might not hit these at the same time with all students. Think about using these at your teacher table, and that maybe you'll start with just 2 or 3 students and progress to more students as they begin to understand the concept of not just letter recognition, but letter sounds and blending. And then the graphics are just beautiful. Again, I just want to remind you they're digital, all of them. And then all of your big books, your read aloud cards, your oral language cards, everything I've been showing you to build strong literacy is available digitally. So just wanted you to be mindful of that. As you introduce book time of your ABC, you're always going to have a read aloud. And notice across the page here, I just wanted you to see this. For 4-year-olds, for 3-year-olds, for those who might be considered advanced learners. So you can keep the activity at the whole group level, but you can approach it in different ways depending on how your group is maturing and learning as well. So you're always the objective is, and then of course, small group instruction opportunities to build vocabulary with your students as they begin to mature. All of this available to you, everyday instruction to meet every single need of every single student. So think about how you're going to use all these. And then, of course, I mentioned special needs. But as an experienced teacher, you're going to find that you would use this with any student in your classroom. Perhaps someone who has a language impairment or whose language is not developing as quickly as others. Those with behavioral issues. Those who perhaps have cognitive delay, gross motor, fine motor, those things. Look at what we provided for you and how to adapt your materials. So I wanted you to look for those. And then, of course, those beautiful check marks I pointed out to you, you will see developmental red flags that you think you should be looking for on those beautiful assessment checklists, okay? And all of this is available in your assessment flip book as well, and specifics. So I know I threw that at you fast. I know that. And I'm going to apologize for it because I didn't want to. But we have a limited amount of time, and I wanted to sign it. So as we progress out of Worlds of Wonder, before we leave, though, I would like to show you the World of Wonders landing page. This is week 1. Tell me I logged out of it. As we look at, this is week 1, unit 1. Here are my 2 focus questions.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I can't see your
Go right ahead. I'm going to go in here and pull this back up.
Okay, great.
Go right ahead.
I was just going to say, I can't see your screen.
Oh, okay, I'll switch over. I went to Connect Ed and it logged me out.
Oh, that's fine. We can do a Q&A if you'd like. There are a few questions that have come in for World of Wonders. Perfect. Okay, thank you, Judy, for your questions. Judy wants to know, where can I find the alphabets?
I'm going to show those in your digital resources, and you should have alphabet cards in your materials as well.
Okay, great. And where are they distributed in the units?
They're going to be in every lesson, and they will, in the teacher's edition, will explicitly tell you when to pull those up, which ones to use at which point, in the lesson itself. So let me switch over. Let me share so that you can see that online as well. Share my screen. There we go. Okay. There we go. Can you see it now?
I see the presentation. Yes, I can see it now.
Okay, great. I'm in World of Wonders right now. This is your landing page. Notice I'm in Unit 1, Week 1. I immediately see those 2 focus questions. Now, this is my planner, so you have it digitally, and you can also set up a planner for yourself, and I'll show you that. But this is an opportunity for you to progress through everything that I've just shown you, access to all the books, anything printable. So here's day 1. I can open each of these colors, and it shows me which books to use at which time. Here's alphabet time, and that's where you're going to see those alphabet cards you were asking about. Not just the letter recognition, but also the phonological awareness. And you see those over here. So those can be projected, or of course you can use the print version. So there's your A, and then here's your B. Here's your book time, and it's telling me exactly which book to use. And then I move to C, which is, of course, the content, the connections to social studies, science, math, and those things. So that's my circle time. And as I move through, here's my teacher table as I move the students into small groups with me, and I see each of the components of the teacher table and then what I can access. Here's the book I can read. Either I can read it online with them and project it, or I can use the hard copy. And then here are all of my centers. So each of these colors is going to take you through every single day of the week. So very, very laid out. Also, I can just go to today. So if I set up a calendar, I can always just go to today, and it keeps me from having to flip around. And notice we've built presentations for you that will take you through every step of the lesson. So by opening the presentation, it has everything in one place so that you can just move through it. Also notice up here at the top, if I don't want to use my materials this way, I can simply click on resources, and it takes me over to everything that I've just gone over with you, the entire library. My suggestion about this is it is overwhelming to see just the amount of materials that you would have. Notice you have your concept cards, but one of the things I want to show you in this resource library is Welcome to World of Wonders. This is an introduction to World of Wonders that just like we just went over. But I know I threw a lot of things at you, and I know that, after you finish, a WebEx like this, it's so much information. So I just wanted to show you, this is a wonderful, let's call it, for lack of a better word, a capsulized version of what we just did that you can go back on your own. You can open that. you can download it to your desktop so that you have all of the information that you need about how to use this digital tool to the best of your ability. But look at this. Starting a day, alphabet recognition. This is your whole presentation from beginning to end. Every component of a lesson in a single day. Every song, every movement activity, every card, every book. So I wanted you to see that you have the whole presentation built out for you in the sequence that the lesson flows. So just wanted you to see that you have that. And then, of course, you can save things to files for yourself. You can also go into your own files and integrate some of the things that you've built through the years and make it a part of the lesson itself. But as you can see here, you have so many resources that to integrate additional materials might become difficult, and it might really affect your time management. So before adding something, can I just make the suggestion that you really think about what you want to add, because it really could bog you down. Notice all the resources for you, the assessment handbook, your concept cards. Notice the numbers over here. Oh my goodness, all the resources that you have across the program and across a single unit. So just want you to see that you own all of this. It is absolutely fabulous information. I'm going to suggest that you use it as you would like. I certainly won't say do it like this, because and there's your school to home, the 9 different languages. And as you look at the plan, notice there's a weekly planner. There's a calendar for the whole year. If you click on this, it lets you put your first day of school, your last day of school, and then it will populate for you, and it will put all 10 weeks, all 10 units in, the 8 units, 4 weeks each, and then the 2 extra units at the end. It will do that for you. I strongly suggest using the calendar because it is a fabulous, fabulous tool. And if you can go there each day, click on the day of the week, and it will open all these resources for you from the calendar. But my strongest recommendation and homework number 1 is if you go into all resources, click on Welcome to Worlds of Wonder, and just spend a little bit of time there after our time together. And it makes everything that you see here just come alive for you. Notice there are 4 pages of resources. So you're only seeing one. I just don't want you to be overwhelmed, but I also don't want you going searching for something and you already owned it. Or you're trying to create something and you didn't realize it was already there. So I'm going to close out World of Wonders right now so that we can move into science. And then, of course, as we transition, if you have additional questions, please type those in the chat box, and we'll keep coming back and answering those kinds of things as well. Okay? Then I'm going to move us over. Great. Now, Teresa, can you all see a screen that says resources at a glance?
Absolutely, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you. Was there anything I need to cover?
No, I think that's fine. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No questions so far?
Super duper. Your Inspire Science Early Learners, you're going to see so much of what I just said because our philosophy at McGraw Hill, of course, with these young learners is, at their level of development and tools that you can use with them as they grow, not just in learning and academics, but as they grow socially, emotionally, and as they really learn to understand the school experience. So in Inspire Science for Early Learners, you're going to have everything you need for your pre-K, or what we sometimes call a transitional kindergarten. So I just wanted you to realize the integration opportunities that you will have through your Wonders that makes this science so easy to implement. Number 1, you're going to have a teacher's edition. And this is a weekly integrated lesson, all the resources you need that you could potentially shove, and I'm going to use that word, push Inspire Science into that ABC of Worlds of Wonder. The C part, the curriculum part of crossing content. And think about how you could make this a part of your center time, a part of your circle time, a part of your teacher table. So this is, again, it's all a part of an integrated approach on the behalf of McGraw Hill for you. Everybody learns through hands-on, regardless of whether it's math, science, reading. You and I know these young learners need to touch things. So again, I'm going to throw the challenge out at you of how do we do this when they're at home? So if remote learning is how you're going to start the year, or perhaps at some point, unfortunately, we might have to transition to it, each parent may have to be asked to gather some things together. You do have a collaboration kit if your students are in the classroom that encourages them to do these hands-on experiments. You have a teacher digital center, and we're going to go to that in just a second. But I just want you to know what I'm in right now came from the teacher center. I have downloaded it to my desktop. So I have the opportunity to do that. There are many, many resources that you have that you are allowed to either put them into Google Classroom, if that's something you use, or you can download the resource and put it on your desktop. Now, why do I mention that to you? Because so very often it's difficult for us to get to the internet. We've heard a lot of things this week as some classes have gone to remote learning about difficulty accessing or slow and those kinds of things. So I like for you to know these things so that if you are indeed working on Zoom, WebEx, or Canvas, you have access to your materials that you want to use. Notice you have a flip chart. We love these. I love them, whether it's for reading or science or math. These flip charts, the visual stimulation that these young students get really lets them think about the math, the science, the reading that is a part of the world that they live in. So I love the opportunity to integrate beyond the walls of the classroom. It's a great tool, not just for class instruction, but for demonstration. It's for centers. You can also use it to get children to start talking. Now, you and I know that most of the time we have no problem keeping our young learners in that talking mode. They usually like to share a lot, but keeping them focused and on the topic we're discussing is a challenge. So I have found that these flip charts really keep the discussion focused on what we want to talk about, both in circle time or in small groups. This is the sequence that you will follow. Notice that you have a module approach, just like you do in Worlds of Wonder. You have lessons in every module. No module is longer than 4 lessons, not a single one. The beauty of this is you can rearrange these lessons. You don't have to teach them in the order in which we have presented them to you, but you do need to do the lessons in the module in order. Because very often, and I'll give you the example of observe your world. Observe and describe, measure, observe and describe. So if I teach these out of order, something in lesson 2 might refer to something they did in lesson 1, and then the students are confused. But the actual themes, people, plants, those animals, those things, very often can be rearranged. You might want to choose the module based on what you're doing in your literacy block. So we know that in Worlds of Wonder, that very first topic was food. You could very much do observe at your world. You could also do plants. And this is an opportunity to talk about living and non-living things and which plants provide food, which ones grow in the area of the world that I live in. Where do I get other food sources? So I just wanted to throw that out at you. Notice, too, that it's not an overwhelming number of modules. There are 9, But the opportunity for you to have a chance to integrate these into literacy is probably my strongest point here. And you might want to look at them and begin to think as you plan out your first month of instruction, if indeed using some of these as a part of your literacy block is what you want to do. And then that gives you a heads up on how you want to progress through the scope and sequence of Inspire Science Early Learners. And I was just talking about slow, wasn't I? And this is moving very slowly. But just another point is that in all of Inspire Science, you may hear your colleagues who use it talk about the 5 E's, which are engage, explore, explain, then elaborate, and evaluate. In early learners, we use the first 3 in the lessons. We use engage, explore, explain, and then we won't see the elaborate, and evaluate until you get to the end of a module. When you're engaged, you're in the phenomena. You're introducing the phenomena to the student. When you're an explorer, you're in the hands-on. And so that's when you want to think about using those manipulatives and how you want this to be set up in your classroom. And then explain is drawing them back to circle time and talking and articulating and using language and sequencing events and all those wonderful things that are such a part of the development of the young learner. And this is moving very slowly, and I apologize because all I'm trying to do is just move through. And it just wants to be very slow. Oh, there we go. And it moved too far too fast. So as we're looking at that design of the program, we're gonna give you all of the prompts, the discussion, all of those things that you need to do as a part of the science. But remember, integrated into Worlds of Wonder is, of course, the chance for you to bring this science in. And very often, Wonders is going to tell you exactly which of the ones to use. Notice, too, you have STEM kids. These STEM kids, for our early learners, they begin to look at them. This is Sienna. She's a nutritionist. You'll meet Gia, the geologist. And these are STEM kids who are going to encourage students to do various things as a part of the lesson. For instance, Sienna will encourage them to practice taking turns when they do activities or if they move to a center, those kinds of things. So when we see the STEM kids pop up, they'll yell out their names. There's Sienna. I see Gia. And they begin to understand what the social and emotional learning piece is. What I want to point out here, in your teacher's edition, as you look at an individual lesson, you're going to notice 2 colors, the darker pink right here and the lighter pink. In the lighter pink, we're targeting those very young learners. And these might be students who are coming in with, if not a developmental lag or a language lag, they may be coming in, exhibiting younger behaviors. So we might look at using it's the exact same activity, but we might look at using this particular way of delivering it. Or if you have a class that appears to have some more mature learners, then you might use the darker colors. And again, the idea behind that is you are reaching the needs of every child. So you know your students and you know how you want to deliver the material. The deeper you get into the year, you might find yourself using more of these activities and fewer of these. Or you might find yourself doing this whole circle time and maybe transitioning to the teacher table and pulling some students over to revisit the activity, but using more open-ended opportunities so those young learners have more chance to explore and perhaps spend some more time on the language. You'll notice in Inspire Science, we're going to always recommend about how much time to stay somewhere. So that integrates beautifully into the time chart, the classroom management chart that we saw in Worlds of Wonder. We saw the whole day and the half day. This is a 20-minute activity in Explain. And then it's suggested you do it whole class. But I want to go back to flexibility. I want to remind you, you are the one that will be in front of those students. You are the one who will know if you want to do this whole class or if you want to make this a small group. And we certainly acknowledge that you understand what your students need and you understand how you want to present the material to your students. So that said, just know that we offer the suggestion, but I laughingly say, but if the police are going to come and arrest you because you didn't follow what we said, you have the flexibility of delivering this the way that your students benefit most. Notice the red, and you know what red means. Formative assessment. So this integrates beautifully into the assessments that you're already doing when you're doing your formative assessments, in your literacy block. And then, of course, always, we're going to give you that ELL support that so many students benefit from. I've mentioned the social emotional learning piece. Built into every module and to every lesson, there is a strategy, and these correlate beautifully when you're doing literacy as well. Of course, what we have integrated here are those STEM kids. So notice here, we're reminding you, you connect to World of Wonders, fully aligned to that early learning experience and closely aligned to the modules that you're already going to teach. So we wanted you to have that opportunity to be sure that the integration that you want to have happen across these themes, that you have the information you need to make it happen, and you have that wonderful planning experience. So, want to make connections. You have morning message, and this is a large part, as you know, of that early learning classroom. And it's about routines, and you already know you want to set up routines. So this gives you a chance in every module to get them talking and get them to think, about what it is that they're going to experience. And then the cross-curricular connections are built in as well, and the center activities. So you have centers in World of Wonders. You have centers in Inspire Science Early Learners. You may integrate those centers. You may want to alternate them. Odd days are literacy, even days are science. I'm going to leave that up to you. Just simply know that you have it. You also have suggestions on connecting to literature. Of course, many of these choices are the same books that you're going to be using as a part of World of Wonders as well. So the Discovery Centers are a part of those 5 E's. This is the engage part, and this is moving into explore. So it's very, very, very important these not be skipped. I'm going to challenge you again to think about remote learning, because we want them to use these materials in an exploratory way. And the only way they can do that is if we give them a chance to touch and hold it. So that is a huge part of both what we saw in literacy and what we're seeing in science, and you're going to see it in math too. Going back to that red, we know everything red in World of Wonders and in science is going to be assessment. So you have observation, and you have observation sheets that you can use for this. You can also write on World of Wonders observation sheets. We encourage you to create a science notebook in each of these modules. Now, that is nothing in the world but some sheets of paper. It could be notebook paper. It can be blank white paper that you have stapled together, fastened them together to create a science notebook. And I really, really encourage you to do this in the 9 units. We want them to start writing. We want them to color and explore. We want them to be able to show in some way what they have learned. It also is a great opportunity for them to be reflective about their learning. So a science notebook is also a great assessment opportunity for you as you ask them to show you what they know. So a science notebook for each module is suggested, and how you fasten them together is completely up to you. But the formative assessment, where you can check for understanding is in each lesson's essential question. So in World of Wonders, you have 2 focus questions. In Inspire Science Early Learners, you have an essential question. You will find they are very often easily woven together. But these strategies can be adjusted so that you can use response cards in your materials. Children can use hand gestures. They can answer orally. They can draw. They can act it out, and you can observe. So I'm giving you all of these formative assessment opportunities as you begin to think about the all-important assessment piece in your early childhood classroom. Notice on the right, again, the 2 levels, assigning each group a word to know and asking them to act it out, or give each group one of the materials from an inquiry lab, a hands-on experience, and ask them to demonstrate how that object would move. So you have 2 ways to do the observation. So you can do it whole group, you can do it small group, teacher table. Again, you have so many opportunities on how you'd like to use this. So just wanted to pass this out to you. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to take you over to Inspire Science. Let me switch my screen. I apologize in advance. And hold on. Therese, can you see Inspire Science Early Learners website?
Yes, I can see.
Perfect. Just want to make sure.
No worries.
So,
if you have any questions for Inspire Science Early Learners, please let us know in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we can address it to Beth.
Thank you. So as you can see here, as you log in, you're going to land on your Early Learners website. Notice that you have a menu on the left that will open up, but that's not those are easy ways to access everything that you see here. What I want to point out, though, is that where you go to browse your course, and it's going to open up the program overview, very similar to what I just showed you, but I welcome the opportunity for you to look at that again. Here are all of the resources that you have as a classroom teacher, the flip books, all those things that were mentioned. And then here are each of the modules in the order that we recommend, but I've already defined for you that you have some flexibility. Here's your program guide. This is your teacher's guide, lesson by lesson look. And this is the STEM career coloring book, which allows you to print out so that they can color Sienna and Gia and all those things. So you don't have an overwhelming amount of of resources that you can use. I think the biggest asset you have right here, of course, is to go and click on each of the individual modules, which will open up every lesson in the module. And remember, you only have 3 or 4 per module. So we want to give you the chance to explore this. I do. And I want you to be able to go in, and as you can see here, you can roster all of your students. This is a chance to push out your assignment so that if you want the student, if you want the students to go in and look at the information from the student website, you can do that as well. So just wanted you, I'm sorry, I probably just logged out because I've been talking to someone. So look at that, define how you think the digital resources work for you, and then use them as you will, maybe in correlation, with World of Wonders as well. So if you want to ask about this, I'm happy to answer. Somebody had said earlier with their student book, no, it's making that notebook for each of the modules become more or less a student source. So no, there is no textbook for students. Right? So I'm going to go over to math so that I stay on a schedule. And it's probably going to ask me to log in again because I just keep logging out. And I will tell you this, typically you have about 90, maybe a few less minutes in any particular course in McGraw Hill. So I'm very surprised that the MyMath keeps logging me out. But it might be because, and sometimes it will say to you, we're going to log you out in 5 minutes. So it gives me the chance to hit no. All right. Very easy. I just put in my login and password, and I'm over here at pre-K. All right. Sharice, can you see my math now?
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to be sure. Notice I'm in the Teacher Center. Very often when the students log in, and they do have their own login for each of these programs, it looks very similar. So, you want to be sure that when you click on that, you don't see students in here, because they will have access to fewer resources, of course. As you look at pre-K, I want you to notice here you have a menu button. And I can click on this menu at any time, very similar to Inspire Science Early Learners. And I can look at all of the tools and resources that I have as a part of the program. I can go home. Plan and present is very important, and I'll show you that. But notice here, it's telling me too, at this resource, that I can go to any chapter and any lesson in the chapter at any time. It is suggested in my math that you teach these chapters in order. Very often, as you progress from chapter to chapter, you have built foundational knowledge in these early chapters that these upper chapters depend on. So you don't want to, in terms of reordering, go into a chapter much later in the program, and students don't have the background knowledge they have for success. Notice there are 10 chapters. So this gives me a kind of a 5,000-foot view of how I want to use math with literacy and science. Because, of course, in World of Wonders, I've got those 8 modules, 32 weeks. I have the 2 extra modules that can take me right on up till the end of the year. And then, of course, in science, I have my 9 modules. They don't have 10 chapters. What I will say in advance, my math does not have quite the integration capabilities into science and World of Wonders that those two have. Because in World of Wonders and in Inspire Science Early Learners, you will see the other programs referred to. You will not see that in my math. Let's call it a standalone. So the idea behind, of course, my math is that you're really helping these young learners understand what mathematics really is. And of course, there are opportunities, of course, in World of Wonders to bring math in. So just wanted you to see that, just that bird's eye view of just how much information there is. Notice that the lessons have titles as well. And each of these chapters has what we call an essential question. And just like your other 2 programs that we saw, we want students to focus their learning around something very specific. So this gives us a chance to make sure that as we present the concepts to students, we let them know why they're learning it. So just wanted you to see that you can get to anything here, right? And I'll just do that real quickly. Each chapter has an introduction, but I can go, let's just go to color. And you might find that, you can breeze through some of these chapters that students are coming in pretty prepared for them. Or, again, you might have those ones that really need them. So notice here, we call this a carousel. Each of these can be accessed individually, okay? Or, right, as I go in, let me go here. I'd rather do it here if you don't mind. I can go to Plan and Present. And this takes me over to all the information from my Teacher's Edition. So I'll go to Chapter 1. Notice you have a chapter overview. We have a very explicit part of the chapter that focuses around centers. So you've seen centers in literacy. You've seen centers in science. Now you see centers in math. Taking the opportunity to look at the 3 sets of centers, and perhaps you'd like to set up your classroom thematically and do 2 literacy, 2 science, 2 math, or integrate them and make very informed selections on which of them you'll do. I've seen teachers transition centers into small group teacher tables. I've seen teachers give some centers as a send home to parents or something they could do there. So I'm providing you just with some flexibility in how you want to do these. And then your chapter introduction, and then, of course, the lesson itself. So all of this is laid out for you in Plan and Present. So I have all of my lessons. Notice you have a presentation. Again, if that's how you want to use your digital, completely up to you. So I have a bird's eye view of what's my math, what am I going to use, and we call these blades. Each of these blades opens up into what the activity is. Now you as the classroom teacher, you have in your teacher's edition, activity choice 1, activity choice 2. How do you want to teach? You have, in this particular lesson, you actually have 3. You have a literature choice, a big book choice, and a hands-on. Completely up to you. Do you want to do this as a small group hands-on? Do you want to do this as a read aloud? Do you want to use the big book we provided? These are the kinds of choices you get to make as you develop your classroom experience. So that's your introduction. Then you go to teach. Notice that you're taking the children into your flip book, science flip book, math flip book, literacy flip book. You have so many wonderful tools. And then you move into We Practice. And again, notice this is a part of your presentation. If you want to use a projector or an interactive whiteboard, these are the kinds of very, very explicit directions in how you want to use this. Display 4 blank sheets of paper. Each one should be labeled with a color. So we already know in advance that in addition to using perhaps the presentation, I'm going to immediately immerse the students in the activity through a digital. Again, completely up to you, and ultimately assess. And again, just as with all the other programs, if it's red, it's assessment. So you see, you have a very quick check. This is the kind of lesson that you will do virtually every single day. You have enough, and again, there's no chapter or there's no unit that is perhaps longer than the opportunity. I want to say maybe 6 or 7 lessons tops out. And as you get deeper, for instance here in Chapter 7, you see numbers to 10, you have 5 lessons. And notice that you also have a lesson that focuses on problem solving. The deeper you get into my math, you will see this lesson come out. This is where we are explicitly involving these young learners in what is problem solving. How do you problem solve? And then what do you do when you problem solve? Notice this one is make a model. And then in Chapter 8, these are the, no, I'm sorry. I'm still in Chapter 1. I apologize. The internet's very slow for me. These are the kinds of opportunities you have to integrate more complex, higher order thinking skills. You will always have observe and assess, and you will always have an end of chapter assessment. So notice this one is about 7 lessons. That's a really long chapter for you. But then you have your observe and assess, which you'll want to think about using those assessments that are a part of literacy and a part of science. You have all these fabulous observation opportunities, and you also have those fabulous opportunities to use those observation checklists that we create for you. And again, very explicit instructions. I want you to notice over here too that you have the opportunity to customize. And just like other opportunities within science and World of Wonders, where you have the chance to add in or take what you have always done and things that you've always created and put it into your lesson. Here's your presentation. And in the presentation, you'll have the chance to also add, oops, excuse me, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to click that. You have the opportunity to indeed add some of those resources. And it will say, customize my presentation. Let's go back over here and make sure that you see in your menu that you have a calendar. This is the third calendar I've shown you. So you have one for ELA, you have one for science, you have one for math. No, I'm very sorry they're not integrated, but you may or may not want to choose to use it. It's completely up to you. I find that the World of Wonders calendar is the most adaptable and the one that gives me access to the majority of my materials. At any point, you can go to any assessment in any lesson in any chapter. So I just wanted you to know that you had that. Let me go back to Connect Ed for just a second, and I'm going to close. And I hope you've seen a lot of integration opportunity here. I'm going to go down to pre-K, and I'm going to click on Student Edition. Because I do want you to see that even these young learners have access to the beautiful tools that you're using. I mentioned to you earlier, you could push out an assignment. If you push out an assignment in your drop menu, you see the tab that says assignment. If you use that, your parents will see it here. So when they open, they see it right here. But let the parents know that you've asked the students to do something. It could be something as simple as come to school tomorrow, able to tell us 2 things in your house that are red. Or come to school tomorrow and be prepared to tell us how many doors you have in your house. I mean, just something that gets the parents involved. Notice that our students have pictures or graphics of what they can touch and not words. And then, of course, parents can get to any chapter and any lesson at any time. So by clicking on the chapter and the lesson, you'll notice that the alphabet cards, things like this, it all changes. This is a song, songs in science, songs in literacy, songs in math. There's a very, very ample opportunity to integrate music and movement into your classroom. So again, wanted you to know that you have all of this on the student side as well, and that at any point, students can go for help. And when I click on help, it may not take me there. I apologize in advance if it does. It will take me over to a video. It might ask, well, as here, getting started, helping students understand how to get to something, what they have. Great tool for your parents. So just wanted you to be sure that you knew what the students saw from their end and how easy it is for them to get there. And I open the floor to questions. Oh my goodness, Sharice, 9:29.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we might run over this one, but wow, we're on time dot.
I've been talking a mile a minute.
You have, but you've covered everything very thoroughly, all the 3 programs. Thank you so much, Bev. That was a lot to take on, like math, science, and English for pre-K. But we do hope this was useful for you guys, all the teachers who've attended it today. We had a lot of people who wanted to know about pre-K resources, so we hope this was useful, and it's time for Q&A. So please let us know in the chat box or the Q&A box if you have any questions at all for math, science, or English, any of our platforms.
And if it's okay with you, I'll give them my email address. I meant to put that up, and I apologize for not doing it. I welcome your questions. I know that, Teresa, I think you're going to show them a slide, perhaps with some other websites they can go to from McGraw Hill Help. But my personal email is Beth, B-E-T-H, Minor, M-I-N-O-R, no spaces, no dots, anything. Thank you, 53 @gmail.com. I believe it's in that it was just posted in the Q&A. Please email me. I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to answer your questions. And I don't mean in just the next few weeks or months. Anytime throughout the year, I would just love an email that said, I'm having so much fun with this stuff. That would please me. So I just wanted to share with you, I'm happy to go beyond this WebEx when you have special needs.
Thank you so much. And I guess we don't have any questions as such.
I overwhelmed them, that's it.
Yes, I know, me too. But if you have anything at all, please let us know. And You will receive the recording of this webinar via email. We will also be sending you an option to download the certificate. So watch out for that email that you will receive in a week's time. So you'll receive it and you'll be able to download the certificate and also watch back on the recording. If you have any questions for us, please let us know in the email marketing.imia@mheducation. This was one of the last webinars we had for K-12 series. If you must have attended a series of webinars that we did for K-12, thank you for joining us, and you can stay in touch with us on our social channels for any future webinars that we'd have. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Beth.
Have a good day.
You too.